This lab, we're going to be making a magnesium carbonate. So what I have in this beaker is 10 mils and 2 grams of magnesium sulfate. And it's to boiling. You can kind of see the steam coming off of it. Just when it gets to boiling, we're going to take it off and we're going to add 2 grams. There's starting to boil, if you can see that. There's some bubbling going on down in there. We're going to take that off and just put 2 grams of a baking soda in it. So I'm going to take that off and I'm going to put that in there. And I have to do it slowly because it'll start to make a lot of gas. And you want to know what gas it's making. And think of the reason you take antacids or baking soda. So we're seeing a lot of that foam here. I'll put a little bit more in. I'm going to let that, I'm going to stir that, just swirl that in. Let that sit, and it's making a lot of gas. Gas formation is usually an indication of a reaction. So again, this is 2 grams of baking soda and 2 grams of Epsom salt that I've dissolved into 10 mils of water and boiled it. So the 2 grams of Epsom salt and 10 mils of water was boiled in here. Then I added the 2 grams of your baking soda. So that's it. It's a very simple reaction. Now the next step is going to require, I'll set that down. We'll let that sit. And you can stir it if you want. Just either a micro spatula or a scupula or a glass rod. Just stir that to make sure that all mixes well. You want to stir it maybe just right after you take it off the hot plate. So I'll stir that in. Make sure it finishes the reaction and all the reagents are spread out, so to speak. And what we're going to do now is make a filter paper. So you can take your circular filter paper. And I know there's some instruction where you can just do it this way and then fold it like that. That works, where you just kind of fold it in half, fold it in fourth, and take one, I guess, leaf and pull it out. You can also do it this way. You can just kind of fold it in on itself around the center, whatever works for you. And I'm going to grab my funnel. We're going to put it in there. Now, some folks have trouble with it wanting to pop out. So it kind of wants to, you sit it in there and then it just wants to pop out. So what I would recommend is just put a little bit of water on the filter paper. Not a lot, just to wet it. Because, of course, water's polar, the paper's polar, the glass is polar. So it kind of just makes everything stick. Oops, I just put my paper right down in the sink. So it makes the paper stick. So I didn't mean to get it all unfolded. Went ahead and folded it, but now it stays in there. It's kind of nice and easy. So we'll have a little bit of a seal between the paper, the water, and the glass. I'm going to put that into a ring stand and push that up a little bit. And then what you'll be able to do, once that's at a height, I can have that drain into a Erlenmeyer flask, beaker, whatever it is you want to use. And in this case, we're trying to keep the solid that goes in there, and that's called the filtrand. The filtrate that goes straight through is the liquid. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in there, and I really don't care what I use to catch the water. What I want in here is the solid. And it's pretty thick in here. So I'm going to pour it in there. It's going to take it a while. And what you can do, because this solid is no longer soluble in water, is we can use a chaser. We can take water, and I'm going to use a distilled water, not tap water. You can hear running in the background. I'm going to use distilled water. So I'll set that right there for now, and go grab my water bottle. Don't need a whole lot. Okay, I need a little bit more than that. And grab a little bottle of distilled water. And what we're going to do now is just take it as a chaser. I'm stirring that up, just making sure it gets nice and slurry in there. It's not just hanging out at the bottom. I'll pour a little bit more in, or spray it, and then I'll squeeze it one more time. And we'll let that sit, because I've taken most of the solid now out of the 50 ml beaker. That's now in the funnel, and then that paper is filtering the liquid from the solid. I want the solid, not the liquid. So the solid is called the filtrand. and the filtrate is the liquid that's coming out, and that's not what I want. Might have a little bit of magnesium carbonate because it's somewhat soluble in water, but it's pretty insoluble. I have a lot of magnesium carbonate that I'm catching. We're going to let that dry. I should have pre-weighed the paper, but you can go ahead and do that. I guess when you do this, pre-weigh your paper so that when you get the dry paper back after 2 days with the dry solid in it, you can just weigh it again and take the weight of the paper off the final weight you obtain for this paper and solid. Of course, taking it out of the funnel. So that's it. When you finish this lab up, you just simply take, after 2 days, letting this dry on a watch glass or in a cabinet in a lab, under the lab bench, you can just let this paper and solid dry. And again, if I would have pre-weighed the paper, I could then take and weigh this whole thing, subtract the weight of the paper, and I would know the weight of the dry solid. That's it. It's a pretty straightforward lab. Formation of magnesium carbonate from Epsom salt that was hot in water and mixture with baking soda, adding that baking soda in after the water magnesium sulfate solution was hot. Bye-bye.